Tons of regret. Tons of regret. I still getting in a suit. It was fun. How's it going, guys? I'm Chris, and this is Regular Guy Training. For those that have been asking me questions lately, sorry, I haven't been posting for a little bit, and that's only because between orders and private and open enrollment classes, I've actually had to take a step back a little bit from YouTube for the last couple of months. But today we're going to go ahead and talk about night vision. So I've had this unit I upgraded over a much older green phosphorus 14 well over a year ago, actually. And I tell you what, there's a lot that I look at, and there's a lot that I personally need when it comes to just messing around with night vision. Some of it's obvious, and some of it's not so obvious. Number one, especially early on, if you're going to invest, a down payment for boat money on your forehead, you should probably have a warranty on your stuff. So this is a from the factory thin film white phosphorus unit that is not going to be associated with any of the possible jankiness that you can get from assembling tubes in your buddy's garage. Plus you have a big old warranty card that comes with it in case it just straight up doesn't work out the gate, or you run into problems really early or whatever. And again, if you're going to invest this kind of money and stuff into night vision, I just prefer to have that in case things do go wrong, because look, people put stuff together on Monday morning and on Friday afternoon. So, that there is covered. I have a brand new unit that is more up to date because we're using white phosphorus instead of green, and white phosphorus, at least for me anyway, is significantly better as far as, picking out contrast for different objects that exist in the world. They deal significantly better, at least to my eyes, with light pollution and that sort of thing. So starting, if it's in your case and you're starting with a brand new night vision device, you might as well just start with a lot of the modernization that has occurred in the industry, I suppose, with white phosphorus. So there's that, right? In addition to this, what I love about this particular unit is that it doesn't come with push-button controls. It comes with military standard, tabletop-style controls, and a rotary-type gain adjustment, which I really do personally enjoy. I know this is probably a really niche thing, and I personally haven't even seen it from my students yet, but I could see just trying to move through trees or brush or whatever. I've absolutely been slapped by the sharpest branch in the history of all things, because it's always that, and that brushing against my helmet and all the other crap I've got attached to my face. And I can see things like that just messing with things. I don't like that. I like the tabletop or rotary style controls, whatever you want to call it. I'm not in the in crowd with night vision, so I don't know what they call these things. But point is that I don't like things messing with my unit unless I do, right? I also need a pretty good auto gain for it in case, white lights come on and for whatever reason I can't just instantly turn the night vision off, or I'm suddenly in an area that has lots of light pollution that's in the dark, and just its ability to be able to do that is rather important, at least to me. In addition to this, standard batteries and that kind of stuff, just take a fucking AA. Lithium AA's are everywhere. They last for a long time in units like this, and I like stuff like that. And oddly enough, I do like having, lens caps for either side of this thing that I can throw into a pouch. An advantage to a lot of people don't talk about quite as much is going from night to day to night again, and just being able to plug a couple of caps on my unit, throw it in a pouch, and keep going on with my day is actually fairly important to me, as far as, you know, just being flexible and being outside with like boots and shit on for a long time. So that's at least a little bit important to me. I don't know how important it's going to be to you, but it's something that I look for personally. You know, in addition to this, you know, besides gain controls and, you know, little quality of life improvements like lens caps and that sort of thing. Well, just me personally, I like having just the ease of clarity. There's no possible jankiness when it's, well, there is a significantly less possibility of jankiness coming from factory units, so that's what I'm looking for here. And I understand that, you know, usually when guys are looking at green phosphorus units, or when they're looking at assembling tubes and stuff like that, again, in their buddy's garage, the drop in price is really attractive for a lot of guys. But something that I've noticed over and over and over again is whether you have a Maul on your gun or a Holosun LS321, D-Ball A3, a military PEC 15, or the civilian one, which I just don't suggest that you get. A lot of times, especially when we're looking at what you're going to deal with, as far as, you know, different shadows and how moonlight hits or lack thereof, a lot of times it really comes down to the clarity of the unit. So the difference between this, for instance, and a no film 14 by L3, because this is a Steele Industries Elbit tube, is essentially the difference between 720p and 1080. It is less clear, not crazy less clear, but it is less clear than a no film. That's demonstrably provable. But it can be done pretty easily either way, because you're still picking up the same frames, if that makes any sense. As far as specs on the individual tubes, this is kind of hard to talk about, because of the manufacturing process, you're going to get slightly different specs per tube. The one that everybody obsesses over is FOM, right? Now, this one is just barely over 2400, which is perfectly adequate for the vast majority of things. I can even drive with this thing pretty easily. Although, you know, lots of new people that are trying to drive with their with their lights blacked out in a 14 find it a little sketch, and it's a little hard to get used to. At the same time, I've done that a bunch already with real trash house gravel road in front of my face military units. So with a nice clear white phosphorus unit, it makes driving actually very, very easy. In addition to this, you know, so I'm not going to go much further as far as specs and that kind of stuff are concerned, because they are going to vary a little bit from unit to unit. And also something else related to specs, even though I just said I was going to quit talking about it. Very standard 40 as far as your field of view. No big deal there. So another really big thing that I look for, that I would be mildly concerned about with a unit that is made by somebody that I don't have much experience with, right? Because even though they're trash house units, they're trash house units because they were very, very overused, right? But, you know, military stuff. But those tubes are still made by L3, right? So here's the thing about that. Something you absolutely have to have is really, really good weather seal, you know, as far as battery compartment and all of your electronics equipment and blah, blah, blah. And this is very, very much important, mostly because enough people that have done it enough will absolutely tell you, it does not matter where you live at all. You're going to deal with wet anywhere that you're at, because the longer that you mess around outside and the closer you get to high dew point, in some places it's really, really bad. For instance, in Kentucky, it's really, really bad. Like, it's just a mist that rolls in and obscures everything, and now suddenly all of you is wet, and everything's trying to fog, and even the guns and stuff are dripping moisture off them, that kind of thing. You're going to have to deal with that. So making sure that you have good weather seal is very, very important, particularly in the battery compartment, because that can cause all kinds of issues. And frankly, it's mostly there, and in some cases, it's in the control packs too, because there's little push-button control packs out there that need to be sealed up and all this other shit. And I personally, it's probably just fine, but for me, I don't like having that on a system that costs as much as a cheap boat. You know what I mean? So that's where that kind of starts and ends for me. And of course, I wouldn't be speaking of this in any realm of positive if it didn't have a good seal on that. Again, I've had this for over a year. I do a lot of night vision stuff. I am out doing night vision stuff at least once a week, sometimes more than that. And I have been doing a lot of private night vision classes, as well as doing open enrollment classes here and there. So as far as its performance, I don't have to deal with very heavy dew points suddenly meaning there's a wet spot in my field of view forever. I have seen that before, and that sucks because this crap is expensive. All I ever have to do is, like draw a line of Dove soap into my lenses softly and then buff it in, or throw some cat crap on there so I can avoid fogging, that kind of thing. And I'm pretty much good to go here. And it answers all of the questions that I needed as far as upgrading into a new unit. And in addition to this, a unit like this is barely over $3K. And the difference between that and a no film from Elbit or somebody is at least $1,000. So if you're trying to get into this, you're trying to get set up right, but you're also still on a budget, this for me is the bare minimum of what is required to do well in the dark, and it's going to do pretty much everything that you need it to do. Oh, and last thing, something that's also very important as far as controls for me is it's easy to signal. Now, this doesn't mean a whole lot to a whole lot of guys, but if you're doing small unit stuff, or if you're doing platoon size or squad size stuff and you have your own tubes or different tubes from somebody else or whatever, you'll find out, especially in the dark, that when you're trying to IR signal somebody, okay, this isn't so much a searchlight on these as it is a signaling device. At least it's how it was used throughout my career, aside of trying to pick up something that you dropped on the ground and you're in a non-disciplined environment where you don't have to worry about IR signatures and that kind of stuff. But I can do my 3, 2, 1 signals or start signals or accountability signals or whatever very, very easily with this. And I have noticed that on some of the push button systems, or even on some of the PVS 31 rigs that are out there, or just pick a dual tube setup that's out there from somewhere. Either it's a ruggedized setup or it's an articulating one or whatever. I have noticed that they are a little bit slower sometimes, depending on the setup again. They're a little bit slower to signal than just a very basic fucking PVS 14 body. It's not a shot. It's not a shot at all, the dual tube people. It's just something that I've noticed that's a little funny. No big deal there. And again, no shade. Again, if you can afford the extra processing power, do it. But if you can't, and if you're trying to do stuff in the dark, this is going to get you pretty far. I have just tons of experience with PVS 14s to the point where I don't really feel their shortcomings in a way that a lot of new guys do. Not the same way anyway. Maybe one day we'll sit here and talk about implementation of night vision a little bit, but there again, I teach an entire class on that. So, there's that. But, really it's just been a good unit. It's been a solid performer. It's done everything I've asked of it, time and time and time again, with absolutely no issues whatsoever, and that's over the course of a year. And a lot of you are not going to recognize what that means a lot. As much of what that means, because for some reason, especially with the volume and the type of training that I do or practice that I do on my own or whatever, something that hangs around here with for an entire year without any performance issues or gripes whatsoever, that's a feat. Because a lot of times I've either broken something, found out an Achilles heel someplace, found something about it that I have to compensate for, something like that. I just haven't found that with this because it is a solidly put together unit, and for me, this is the floor. This is the absolute minimum. Everything else is not going to serve you anywhere near as well. So just start here, just spend a tick over $3,000 and go from there. Okay. So that said, remember guys, regular guys fire. Oh, and before I actually get into the outro here, if you want to support us, right, you can throw a tip in the comments section here. Actually, just throw us $1 or whatever. All of this stuff really does help because it stacks. Or if you want to jump on the Patreon thing, you can throw in any amount that you want per month. However, if you want to get something out of it, $41 a month will get you as much training as you want with us as you can stomach, especially if you're willing to travel. Holy shit, that guys that religiously do that essentially rob me blind because they know what my full price is on my classes. This includes night vision stuff. The only thing it doesn't include is private classes and vehicle classes because of the logistics, and I think that's fair. You can also check us out on Facebook. You know, we've been up forever on that. And remember, guys, a regular guy's firearm is the last defense against tyranny. Peace.